So, any questions so far? Or are there any passages or any things that you want to discuss about the play? All right. So before I get to talk about specific aspects of the play, I want to just sort of introduce some concepts that are prevalent in Shakespeare, and that if you take Shakespeare, these are the basic things you should know when you read his poetry, when you read his plays. So first, if you notice, starting with Act 1, Scene 2, from the very beginning, Claudius refers to himself in the first person plural. He doesn't say just I, he says we, and that in English is called royal we. So kings refer to themselves in the first person plural. The monarch does that. 就好像在中文，皇帝叫自己朕的意思的。Royal we, why the royal we? The royal we is there because the monarch represents the entire community, so their interest is not just a personal voice, but they represent the entire public interest of all the people in the community. So when they are speaking in public, or when they are speaking with respect to public affairs, public matters, they will refer to themselves in the first person plural. So let's look at that a little bit. Act 1, Scene 2. Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, and that it us be fitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Yet so far has discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. Therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress to this warlike state, have we, as it were, with a defeated joy, with an auspicious in a dropping eye, with mirth and funeral, and with dirge and marriage, in equal scale, weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. Nor have we here embarred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along, for all our thanks. Now follows that you know. So notice in the beginning too, the king, that is Claudius, is eager to show that it's okay. My brother just died, but I married his widow, and it's okay. We're sad, but we're also happy. And how do you sort of strike such a balance between the two? He thinks he could do it, but these are things that he seems to be doing in a way that underlying, it's a little strange, isn't it, that you are so eager to sort of justify yourself, that after your brother's death, you quickly married his widow, right? But on the other hand, he's also speaking in the voice of a king. I'm very kingly, I'm using the royal we, I'm representing the public interest, and I'm the face of Denmark right now. My brother that's dead, he's gone. So I get to speak for Denmark. Now, as soon as he does that, notice he moves on right away to Fortinbras, line 17. Now follows that young Fortinbras, holding a weak supposal of our worth, were thinking by our late dear brother's death, our state to be disjoint and out of frame, collegiate with this dream of his advantage. He has not failed to pester us with message, importing the surrender of those lands lost by his father with all bands of law to our most valiant brother. So much for him. Now for ourselves and for this time of meeting, thus much the business is. We have here writ to Norway, uncle of young Fortinbras, who, impotent and bedrid, scarcely hears of this his nephew's purpose, to suppress his further gait herein, in that the levies, the lists, and full proportions are all made out of his subjects. Yeah, and here we dispatch you, good Cornelius, and you, Votamon, for bearers of this greeting to old Norway, giving to you no further personal power to business with the king more than the scope of these delated articles allows. So, again, Claudius starts to play the game of politics. He's saying, I'm sending my ambassadors to Norway, and knowing that Norway's king is weak, he goes after the king. Ambassadors, you go and talk to the king. Make sure that the nephew, the young Fortinbras, he doesn't make trouble for us. But Fortinbras is clearly the one with energy. He's pushing again, pushing to avenge his father, pushing to regain the lands that his father lost to Hamlet in war, old Hamlet in war. Right. So starting with Act 1, Scene 2, a lot of business, a lot of political affairs to attend to. Notice how busy Claudius is. Hamlet, however, is just not much. No action, no movement. Again, Royal We, Act 1, Scene 2, line 42. And now, Laertes, what's the news with you? You told us of some suit. What is it, Laertes? You cannot speak a reason to the Dane and lose your voice. What wouldst thou beg, Laertes? That shall not be my offer, not thy asking. The head is not more native to the heart, the hand more instrumental to the mouth, than is the throne of Denmark to thy father. What wouldst thou have, Laertes? So Claudius is asking Laertes, Polonius' son, what do you want? Ask from me. Why? Because I represent Denmark. I am Denmark. So notice he's referring to a very important idea in Shakespeare's time, and that's called the king's two bodies. Okay. The very person of the king is the very community he embodies. So the king is both the person and the king is also the country. Okay. So that goes back to an ancient belief, and for medieval Europeans, a belief that developed a few hundred years, started developing a few hundred years before Shakespeare, that the king is very much the natural body, the physical body, but also the political body of the country. And in fact, medieval people follow this principle very rigidly. Late medieval people, Europeans that is, follow this principle very rigidly. And in Shakespeare's time, that principle was developed into a full-blown legal and political institution by Shakespeare's time. So what do I mean by a full-blown legal institution and political institution? Kings, if they represent the whole country, then to a certain extent, they cannot be prosecuted when they are in office. Yeah. There's a question that is still a matter of debate. But notice Western political tradition follows this kind of institution. And I go back to Trump. In his first term, he broke the law. Prosecutors wanted to prosecute him, but they ended up not prosecuting him. Why? They will say it's a policy of the United States Department of Justice not to prosecute a sitting president. Why? Goes back to this. If the king's body is hurt, that means the whole country is hurt. So it's literally, you have to imagine, the person is the country. So if the person's not doing well, the country's not doing well. And if the country's not doing well, the person will also not do well. So it's vice versa. It's not just that you have to make sure the king is okay, but if the country's not okay, what's going to happen? The king's going to die. That's what it is. Everybody's unhappy with the king, then the king's not going to do well. Yeah. So the King's Two Bodies is a long kind of influential tradition in Western politics. So to this day, one can argue it still has an influence on Western politics. Now, whether or not that should, because as I just said, the United States, it's not a monarchy, it's a democracy. So I do think that in a democracy, presidents are not above the rule of law. If the president commits a crime, of course you gotta prosecute the president. But it goes back to this idea. Same way when you read other tragedies or other plays that Shakespeare wrote, for instance, King Lear. I know that in King Lear, when Taiwanese scholars talk about King Lear, they often talk about the family relationship, the three daughters and the father and the filial relations between these people. But really the most important thing when you read King Lear and you know something's going to go wrong is when King Lear says, I'm going to divide my kingdom in three. Why? The king's two bodies. What's going to happen when you divide your kingdom in three? Your body is going to go. Your body is going to undergo a division. You will not survive that. So for Western readers and Western scholars, it's a very clear sign that King Lear is making a mistake. You should not divide your body. The same way, when we talk about Macbeth, when you kill the king, there's got to be a price to pay, because once you kill the king, the country goes into crisis, right? The body goes, the physical body goes, the abstract spiritual body of the political community will suffer some sort of trauma, some sort of damage as well. So here, Shakespeare is talking about that as well. Even though Claudius is conducting himself as, I'm the king and I embody Denmark. Hamlet clearly understands the body has suffered damage. The body politic. The political body is not doing well. Why? The old king was murdered. And so can we continue like this? Is there a kind of problem? So questions, comments so far? In the same act, Hamlet first started talking about suicide. And so you see the contrast between Fortinbras, right? Young Fortinbras, he's saying, I want my country's land back. The Norwegian prince says, I am a warrior. I want to reclaim my country's lost territories. And then here's the Danish prince. Can I kill myself now? He's thinking about suicide. That's the stark contrast. And the difference in energy there. And Shakespeare's interested in this very kind of plot about how this guy can be the center of the action. Can Hamlet even be the hero? How is he the center of the story? Because I want to kill myself. So, Act 1, Scene 2, line 129. Oh, that this too, to Sally flesh would melt, thaw and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Oh God, God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie on it, ah, fie, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely, that it should come to thus, but 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion, to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteem the winds of heaven, visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth must I remember. Why? She would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet within a month, let me not think on it. frailty, thy name is woman. A little month or over those shoes were old, with which she followed my poor father's body. Like Niobe, all tears, why she, O God, a beast that once discoursed of reason, would have mourned longer, married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her gala eyes, she married. Oh, most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. Obviously, this is a soliloquy, meaning it's speaking the character's feelings, but to himself, so the audience hears it, but other characters in the play don't hear it. Now, in this particular soliloquy, you will see he starts by talking about by thoughts of suicide, but the thoughts of suicide are not just, I want to kill myself, I'm so depressed. It's got a kind of structure to why he reasons. That reason brings him to that kind of depressive thought of killing, ending his life. First, his mom. He can't get over his mom getting remarried. He has a thing about his mom. And he's imagining, right? He's very sexual in imagining his mother's needs. My mom married my uncle so quickly. It's about sex. Another thing about that is he goes back to it is, again, what I said earlier when he met with the ghost. He cannot stop remembering. Memories are there. He keeps going back to the past. So he says, line 143, must I remember? And not only that, he says, I can't say anything. He says at the end, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. And notice the way he talks about how his mind works. He says, starting earlier in this speech, line 135, fie on it, ah, fie, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely that it should come to this. It's everything just no order, chaotic. It just grows, and it's just disgusting. He's thinking too much. There's no order and there's no direction. Nature is a chaotic thing. Nature stinks. He's very depressed right now. His situation in life, he thinks about it as very low. He feels dragged down, His uncle is satyr. His father, he compares his father to Hyperion. His brother, his uncle, is satyr. And his mother is compared to a beast. She's a little better than a beast because a beast would have mourned longer. She's an animal. She's not even worth an animal. And he says, look, he just comes out and says, look, the reason I won't kill myself right now is that God won't allow it, or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. God says you can't do that. So otherwise I would do it. And so once you think about this, it's a man who's haunted by memory and also haunted by other people's actions. He is incapable at this point. The only action he wants to do, I want to kill myself. I can't because God won't allow me to do that. But so what do you want to do? Well, I am so mad at my mom. My mom did this. So the person in the speech that's making action is the mother. He is mad his mother has moved on with her life after his father's passing. She has no problems moving forward in life. He's unhappy with that. He won't. And he wants to remember and remember and remember his father. He adores his father clearly. He thinks his father is so great. He compares him to Hercules. He compares him to Hyperion. And the problem? Woman. So first, then you will, that's Shakespeare's question. How could this guy be the hero? How is he heroic? There are moments in his life he clearly looks very flawed. He seems very flawed. In a revenge tragedy, he has no plan to move forward. He's constantly caught in the past. And he's overburdened by the past. He's overburdened by memory. And his problem is with other people moving forward in life. So in some ways, the reason Hamlet is brilliant is Shakespeare reverses, right, the action of a revenge tragedy. A revenge tragedy is about moving forward, getting things done, getting to kill that guy who done you wrong. But here, it reverses it. I can't take my mom. She doesn't mourn my father anymore. I'm still mourning my father. I want to mourn. I want to remember. I am in the past. I live in the past.